Zion, can I just check to see if this is working, the clicker? Point it to that. Okay, great. Nice work. Good morning to you. What is your name? All right, we're going to get started here this morning. So, my name is Brian Cafferkey, and I'm from Loma Linda, California. And I'm happy to be here today with you today. And we'll be talking a little bit about relational triangles this morning. So if you've never heard of relational triangles, hopefully you will learn something. If you've already heard about relational triangles, I invite you to maybe learn something new or increase your understanding of that. There are some handouts that are being handed out that I invite you to also take to help you follow along with what I'm presenting. So this is my family. It's sunny in California right now. So I am on the left in the red, and I have two daughters, Penelope and Phoenix, and my wife, Jenny, is in the sunglasses. So my wife is taking care of them as I get to be here with you this morning. And I'm so excited to be here and to have the opportunity to share with you, even though I'm missing my family. So let's have a short prayer, and then we'll get started. Father God, I thank you for this chance to reflect on families, learn about families, and change the way we operate in families. You're a good God, and we thank you for being there with us. Amen. All right, so this is part one of relational triangles. We'll be talking more about relational triangles this afternoon over in DC. I just learned there's this dividing line right there. So this afternoon we'll be over in DC in that building, continuing the conversation about relational triangles. Every behavior is a symptom of the system. Every behavior is a symptom of the system. And if we can understand behaviors in relation to other behaviors and how they can be symptoms of the system and the rules of the family system, the rules of the church system, the rules of the system and where we work, we can understand why people are behaving the way that they do. So I'm hoping to open up some understanding about these different behaviors, different systems. So right here, this is me before I learned about triangles, and I saw a little butterfly that was 100% somebody else's issue. So I'd ask myself, is this my problem to fix? If it's someone else's issue, is this my responsibility to fix? This is one of the big underlying questions we are going to be wrestling with today, because I think we all believe we should be helping other people, but should we always be helping them? Ooh, so how do we decide that? So that's going to be one of the challenges, one of the questions we'll be wrestling with today. So by the end of today, hopefully you will learn about triangles, relational triangles, what they are, how they operate. Hopefully before church, we'll be learning about our role and our positions in triangles. And then later on this afternoon, we'll learn about the stability or instability of triangles and how to detriangulate ourselves from tricky relationships. All right, in this picture, we have two kids. They look like twins to me. The one on the left is feeding the one on the right. What else? Oh, let's get the microphone out actually right now if we can to ask some people. What do you notice about this picture? What are some things you notice? Raise your hand. We'll get the mic to you. We have some right here. Yeah. What do you notice about this picture? One child is assisting the other. And this might be cute, right? To see one child assisting the other, right? What else do we notice?
One child is looking away from the other.
Good. They're not looking at each other, right? One child is looking away from the other. The one who's being fed is looking out. The one who is feeding is looking to the other child. Good. What else do we notice? Yes.
Also, the one that's feeding the child, he
she does not look very happy.
The one on the left does not look as happy? Okay. And I don't know if you can see, there's also some, if we use, on the cheek of the one on the left, there's a little bit of that fruit or whatever they're eating. Maybe it's dragon fruit or watermelon. The one on the left is also messy. Good. What else do we see?
There are enough food in the table for both of them to share, and he's like not meeting his need and like giving the food to the other person.
Okay, so one on the left is spending more energy feeding the one on the right, even though there seems to be enough food potentially for both. Okay, good. Yes, over here.
I only see one plate.
I only see one plate. Yeah, there's a bowl.
I see one there, then
Yeah, there might be one over on this side, I'm not sure, but it's clearly all the focus is on the child on the right? The food is in front of the child is being fed, and this might be something we may want to nurture in young children, how to take care of others. But imagine if this is true, what else might be true in their relationship? And if we continue this for 10 years, so instead of being 1.5 or 2 years old, let's pretend they're 11 or 12 years old, these siblings are sitting next to one another at the table, and one sibling continues to feed the other sibling. How would we feel about that? Wouldn't like that. Why wouldn't we like that?
Because the other one is helpless. The other one is not taking care of themselves.
Good. Now let's notice there are some people across the lifespan that have different support needs. Let's notice that. But if people are, we got a hand back there. But if people are able to take care of themselves, then that one person will become dependent on someone else to do something that they are capable of doing. Yes?
The one on the left is showing love.
Yes.
If he didn't love him, he would not be feeding him. He would say, feed yourself. You know?
Okay, so this is a nice reciprocal relationship. The one on the left enjoys loving and caring for the one on the right, and the one on the right loves being cared for, all right? The question is this a two-way street or a one-way street? Right? It might be one way. Potentially codependency. That's a big word, right? So my daughter is 6 years old, and she has Velcro shoes. Soon we will be transitioning to shoelaces. So Brian, if I'm my best parenting self and I plan ahead and I'm patient, I'll make sure to allot an extra 10 minutes to get into the vehicle every time to go to school. We go outside in the garage or by the front door, and I allow her to try and struggle to learn how to tie her shoes, because this is an important developmental process for her. But tying shoes is difficult when you're first learning it, right? And there might be some tears on her end, some tears on my end, and I might be tempted to say, I'll just do it for you, and I just do it for her. We got to get to school. And there might be days when that's going to happen. But hopefully I'm able to allow her to struggle a little bit with appropriate supports, with modeling, some scaffolding, helping her do some of it, coaching her through that, affirming her, not just pointing out the things she's doing incorrectly, but when she's approximating what she's supposed to do. So I can teach her how to do that, because if I don't do that, in 10 years, she'll be 16 years old. I'm going to get a call at work. Dad, will you please come? I'm done with gym class, and I need to tie my shoes. So I'm going to leave Loma Linda University, drive 25 minutes to her high school, check in at the front office, get a visitor's pass, go find the PE, stand outside the locker room, wait for her to come out so I can tie her shoes. She'll say, thanks, Dad, give me a kiss on the cheek, and go back to school. But I can't do that all the time, right? So there's going to be some times where I have to allow her to struggle a little bit. And it's for her benefit, lest I rob her of the opportunity to develop mastery over something that is initially difficult. We're on board with this? Okay. There are some people in some families, in some relationships, that are able to do some things themselves, but it's hard. And you might be really good at it. And you might be tempted to jump in to tie their shoes for them because you know you're good at it. But if you do that too quickly, there's a chance you rob them of the opportunity to develop mastery over something that it's probably in their best interest to learn how to do. So everything I'm sharing today, I'll be sharing from the perspective as a certified family life educator, not wearing my marriage and family therapy hat. So if there are issues of well-being or safety or harm, you might need to adjust this approach. But if safety, well-being, and harm are not on the table, then these are some things that I'll be recommending. We're on board with this? Okay, great. So this is me on the top. This is a hero coming to the rescue. Here's me accepting the invitation to get involved in other people's unresolved conflict. And the result is I spend so much of my emotional capacity helping other people that I do not have enough emotional capacity to take care of my own business. And sometimes we get roped into other people's stuff instead of actually dealing with our own stuff. Before I came here, I spoke with Beulah and Tara and Sandra and Pastor Marlon Reed. We had a conversation about what I'll be talking about, and they said, you're allowed to come here to visit as long as you talk about this one topic. Because the whole church wants to talk about this one topic. They've been asking consistently for the past 4 or 5 months to hear about this topic. So I want to see if we're on the same page. On the count of 3, I want you to tell me, what is your favorite thing to talk about when it comes to families? We're going to see if we're on the same page. So think about, what is your favorite thing to talk about when it comes to families? On the count of 3, we're all going to say it at the same time, and I'm assuming we're all going to say the exact same thing. And I'll say it with you, okay? So think about your favorite thing to talk about families. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. I was told in-laws. I was told you wanted to talk about in-laws. So that's how we're going to start this morning. We're going to talk about in-laws in the Bible. So this is the story in Genesis chapter 27. This is titled Jacob's Deception. Maybe a better title would be Rebekah's Deception by proxy through Jacob. This is when Jacob is deceiving his father, this legally blind elderly gentleman who's going to be blessing his favorite son Esau. So Isaac says to Esau, go out and hunt some game, bring it back to me and cook it the way that I like it. And Rebekah is listening and hears this, and she says, oh, I have an idea. I'm going to get my favorite son, Jacob, to do this instead. So she has Jacob go, and I'll cook you some food. You bring to your father, and you're going to dress up in a goat skin like your hairy brother. You're going to go trick your father so you can get the blessing. Does anyone know why she is doing this? Any ideas? We got a hand right here.
Because she believes she needs to help God?
Yes, she believes she needs to help God. God already told her that the older would serve the younger, and God helps those who help themselves. So she's just greasing the wheels, right? Helping God along. Good. What's another reason she might be doing this? Got a hand right here.
She had a plan of her own.
Well, she had a plan of her own, right? God said this would happen, and I knew how it's going to operate, right? I know how it's going to work out. Because if I can get my favorite son to receive the blessing from the Father, he already has the birthright after swindling his brother out of the birthright. So if my favorite son will have the blessing and the birthright, for all intents and purposes, he will be the eldest son of the family, and I can spend out the rest of my days with him. But there's another reason she's doing this. Anyone know? Selfishness. Yeah, she wants to take care of her own well-being, right? And it's okay to take care of yourself, right? It's okay to do that, to look out for your own self-interest, but she's doing this potentially at the detriment of other people. There's another reason she's doing this. So this chapter break is artificial. The original Hebrew text did not have these chapter breaks. And where we put the chapter break tends to influence how we start the story. The story does not start with Isaac telling his favorite son Esau, go and hunt to bring back some food so I can bless you. The story actually starts in the previous few verses. So imagine the chapter break is not there. Let's see how the story actually starts. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, the daughter of Beri the Hittite, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and they brought grief to Isaac and Rebekah. The story starts, Isaac and Rebekah do not get along with their daughters-in-law. That's how this starts. So hold that in your mind as you read the rest of the story. Let's see what happens. So after the whole deception, Esau hears about it, and he, look at the very top. So Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing with which his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, notice it's one line. He said to himself in one line, one sentence, the days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. He says it short and concise, and let's look at what Rebecca does. She takes this one sentence and she amplifies it. She blows it up, makes a big deal. Now, when the words of her elder son Esau reported to Rebekah, she sent word and called her favorite son Jacob and said to him, "Behold, your brother Esau is consoling himself concerning you by planning to kill you." She could have stopped, but that's not enough for Rebekah. She wants to make a big deal about it because she wants someone to take action. She says, "Now then, my son, obey my voice and arise, flee to Haran to my brother Laban. Stay with him a few days until your brother's fury subsides, until your brother's anger against you subsides, and he forgets what you did to him. Then I will send word to you and get you from there. Why should I lose you both in one day?" And the next breath, she turns to Isaac and says, "I am tired of living because of these daughters of Heth, my daughters-in-law. If Jacob takes a wife from the daughters of Heth, like these from the daughters of the land, what good will my life be to me?" And then Isaac, the next verse, turns to Jacob and blesses him and commanded him, saying to him, "You shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Paddan-aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and from there take to yourself a wife from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother." All of this is because Rebekah wants a different daughter-in-law. She wants a daughter-in-law from her family who knows how to cook the right recipes, organize the right way, follow the family rules. She does not like these other daughters-in-law. That's why she's doing all of this. And because of all of this, she never gets to see her favorite son ever again because she passes away while he's in Paddan-aram. Did she deal with the conflict directly? No, she went around. She did not want to deal with it. It was too spicy, too hot for her. She was trying to find another way to get around this, but she was spending a lot of emotional energy to do that. She could have prayed about it. She could have applied the Matthew 18 principle. She could have held a family meeting with Esau and the daughters-in-law. She could have agreed to disagree with her daughters-in-law. Instead, she convinced her favorite son to dress up in a goat skin to swindle the legally blind husband from the blessing and then scare Jacob out of town to obtain an approved wife from her family back in Paddan-aram. A lot of extra work that she was doing because she did not want to deal with the tension she had with other people. Let's move on because of time. Every behavior is a symptom of the system. She's doing this because of interactions with other people, right? Her behavior was a symptom of the tension she had with other people in the system. And I want to tell you this morning that Brian does not believe in such a thing as a two-person relationship. And you're allowed to disagree with me. I have the microphone, but you're allowed to disagree with me. And I have the rest of today to convince you that there's no such a thing as a two-person relationship. De-triangulating is probably the most important technique in family systems therapy. As I provide therapy to individual couples and families, I'm constantly being pulled into their family. They want me to join them in their unresolved tension, to carry some of their anxiety for them. And if I'm not careful, I'll get roped into their distress. It's really easy to get sucked in. For those of you who are mathematically inclined, here's a formula. You can find out how many triangles are present in a room of people. Looks like there might be, I don't know, maybe just between 25, maybe there's like 30 people in this room. So you could do this. You could multiply 30 by 29 by 28 divided by 6. You could find the number of people, potential triangles in a group of people. So if there's 50 people here, there's almost 20,000 different triangles. Doesn't mean they're all active, but they're all present. So a triangle is a three-person emotional configuration. 3 people in a group. Anyone do construction or an engineer or landscaping here? Yes. Can we tap into your wisdom? Maybe. We'll see. So why are triangles used in construction?
Stable.
What do you mean by stable?
They're one of the most stable structures when they're configured or arranged.
Yes,
together.
one of the most stable structures when they're configured, because when there's weight pressing down, that weight is distributed amongst the rest of the triangle, correct? Right? The same thing happens in relationships. When there's too much pressure on one leg of the triangle between two people, those two people often try and find a third person to rope into the triangle so that that pressure is distributed amongst more people than just two. It provides stability. And in some ways, triangles are very healthy for families, very healthy for relationships, very healthy for churches when they are used appropriately. Sometimes they are not. So, 4 quick examples of what can happen in a family. 4 quick scenarios. Here we go. The one on the left. We have 2 people, there's some conflict between them on the bottom left. And a dyad, that's 2 people, experiencing tension, that's this jagged line, can become harmonious with the addition of a third party. So, what does this mean? Let's say there are 2 people who are experiencing conflict and they're fighting over something, but somebody new joins the group and sits too close to them. It's a stranger. Well, they did have conflict before, now that there's a stranger next to them, and they may not like with the stranger how close they sat to their table, they might start to be in agreement that they don't like this stranger sitting too close to them. So now all of a sudden they get along because the addition of a third party. Likewise, on the right-hand side, a harmonious dyad, that's 2 people, can experience tension by the addition of a third party. Let's say there's 2 people in their romantic relationship, and all of a sudden a baby comes along, and because of that, they have to shift their attention to this very dependent little child, and because of that, they have less emotional capacity to take care of each other. So in this scenario, the addition of a third party can change what happens between 2 people. Likewise, on the bottom left-hand side, we have 2 neighbors. They're good neighbors, but they're watching the World Series. And the one on the left is a Dodgers fan, the one on the right is a Yankees fan. So when they're watching the game together, there's tension between them because they're rooting for opposite teams. But when the game is done and the TV goes off, they go back to being good neighbors. On the right-hand side, there's 2 people who get along. Let's say we're in Sabbath school, and there's 2 powerful personalities that like to dominate the conversation. But there's a facilitator that is good at facilitating these 2 powerful personalities. But the facilitator on the top, let's say they have to move away to Nevada or Texas. And when they move away, these 2 powerful personalities start to experience some friction. So what does this mean? This means regardless of whether or not 2 people experience tension or no tension, the addition of or the removal of a third party can change what happens between those 2 people. So if you're just looking at 2 people and trying to figure out why these 2 people experience conflict or how they get along, you've zoomed in too far. If you can zoom out just a little bit, you might be able to identify a third party, a third person, a third family member. And it's not even always a person. It could be a hobby, or a career, or an addiction, or a pet, or a dream. There could be a third party that's affecting how these 2 people are getting along. So I want you to entertain this paradigm shift today. Relationships are about 3s, not 2s. And if you can see relationships in terms of 3s, this will unlock your understanding as to why some of your relationships are so tricky to navigate. Triangles are the basic building blocks of emotional systems. So a relational triangle is a 3-person emotional configuration where 3 people are sharing the load. You can have such a thing as interlocking triangles where I'm in a relationship with my boss and a colleague, but I'm also simultaneously in a relationship with my wife and my child. I'm also in a relationship with my parents and a neighbor, so I can be in multiple triangles at the same time. These triangles can span generations, right? You can be in a triangle up here and also a triangle over here. There's also a chance you might be in a triangle with someone else and that person does not even know that you are in a triangle with them. So how are triangles created? It's when 2 people experience tension, too much tension, so they try and find someone to come and take the load off, to disperse the load so 3 people can carry it. So they try and find a scapegoat or an ally to join them. And when this happens, this is really a multi-level marketing scheme to pass down anxiety that I don't want onto other people. I'm trying to convince other people to help me carry the load. I'm trying to manage my own anxiety. But here's the challenge. To the extent that you become responsible for or try to change the relationship of two others, the more you will experience the stress of that relationship. The more I jump in to try and get involved and save two other people their relationship, the more I will experience the tension of that relationship. In May of this year, I went to the nursery and I got some pots and I got some potting soil and I got some tomatoes and some basil because I wanted to give my two daughters a sensory experience in the garden. So we put on gloves, adult-sized gloves, so their little hands look really floppy in the big gloves. And we were put the hose on, so we got some pretty muddy dirt. And by the end of it, our gloves were fairly muddy. And I've done this for several years, and every year, my gloves get muddy. Not once has the mud got glovey. Meaning, if you try and reach in to help other people and you feel you're responsible for managing the relationship between two other people, you will often get muddy gloves. Rarely will the mud get glovey because you are not responsible for their choices. You're not in charge of them. You're barely in charge of yourself on a good day. Now, if you're a parent or you have a dependent that relies on you, that's a little bit different, right? You're responsible for shaping, facilitating, molding, providing scaffolding for them. But if they are capable of handling themselves, it's not always your responsibility to jump in. And the more you get involved, the more you will experience the distress of that relationship. So triangulation is an anxiety management strategy. We have too much anxiety. We're trying to manage that anxiety. And this relies on other people getting involved in our unresolved distress. Why? We want to feel calmer. We have excess anxiety. We're trying to offload some of it because we ultimately want to feel calmer. That's almost more important than solving the problem, because we assume if we can solve the problem, we'll feel calmer. Oftentimes our goal is just, I don't want to be so stressed. I don't want to be so anxious. And oftentimes we do not want to address the tension in our relationships. We'll go a roundabout ways to try and figure out creative avenues that are not real solutions. It's just shoveling some hot potatoes onto other people. And if you've done me wrong, just know that I've talked with my cousin about it, and he doesn't like you. So you don't even know you're in a relationship, you're in a triangle with me and my cousin, but my cousin knows. And I've offloaded my excess anxiety onto her, so she's helping to carry this for me. And we both agree that you're doing bad stuff. So you're in a triangle with us, and you don't even know it. Because anxiety is like a hot potato. We don't want to hold on for it too long. We want to pass it on as much as possible. We want to go back and forth. Like my daughters, when they got out of swim lessons this summer, if we didn't put the water onto this hot cement, they'd be dancing around like this because they don't want to put their soft feet on the hot cement. Same thing with anxiety. We don't want to hold that anxiety. We want to get it out of our hands as fast as possible. So we'll juggle stuff like extra responsibilities. We'll get other people involved. And what happens is, oftentimes, we are responding to our anxieties more than we are actually responding to the other person. We think it's the other person that's being difficult. The other person is the problem. And oftentimes, it's our anxiety about the situation that we are actually reacting to. Triangling is both an emotional process and an anxiety binding process. Some of you came in, I want to see, are there any more of those handouts? Does anyone need it? Does anyone need a handout? Okay, there's a couple of hands in the back, if you'd be willing to hand that out somehow. I want to make sure you're able to follow along if you so desire. Some triangles feel stable, others feel unstable. We'll talk about that this afternoon. Anxiety is transferable and contagious. We can catch other people's anxiety. And there can be this domino effect from one person experiencing anxiety, pass it on to the next person, pass it on to the next person, passing it on to the next person. And triangles are forever, meaning just because someone moves away or passes away does not mean the anxiety, the tension they had with other people suddenly disappears. So let's say there's a 18-year-old male who lives here in Maryland, and he does not like his parents' rules. His parents' rules are too strict. So he says, you know what? I'm moving. So he scrounges up some money, takes a one-way Greyhound bus all the way over to San Francisco to live with his aunt and uncle. And he arrives at their house unannounced, knock, knock, knock. Uncle and aunt open the door. He says, thank you for being here. I need some help. My parents are way too strict. I do not like their rules. It's not fair. So the aunt and uncle say, come in, let me take care of you. They're already triangled in the situation. So he's living with them. And we're just 3 weeks away from Thanksgiving. And he ran away to aunt and uncle because he knew his parents were going to be going there for Thanksgiving. So now that he's over in the Bay Area, away from his parents who live here in Maryland, does that mean the tension between him and his parents has disappeared? No, it is still there. It's just latent. And when they show up for Thanksgiving, it's going to be very present. In a similar manner, when somebody passes away in the family, all that tension they experience with other people is just redistributed amongst the rest of the remaining family members. And sometimes people start to behave differently after someone has passed away because there's excess anxiety that is now transferred onto them like a precious family heirloom. So a lot of the stress we deal with may not be ours to deal with. It's been passed down from generation to generation, or it's been poured onto our lap from friends and family members and colleagues. And all these hot potatoes we have to deal with, and they may not even be our hot potatoes that we're responsible for. There's a difference between dealing with my own drama and meddling with some other people. I do not like moving. There was a time in my life, in 6 years, I moved 7 times. I had boxes. I kept my boxes. I was planning on moving. I do not like packing my boxes because I don't like looking at this shirt. Am I going to wear this again? Looking at this book. Am I going to read this again? Looking at this cup. Do I need this mug? All these little tiny micro decisions. Incredibly taxing and draining. Do I need this picture, this keepsake? Am I ever going to look at this again? I forgot this even existed. I do not like moving myself. But I love moving other people. I show up, I get pizza, I get water, I go to the closet, I grab all the clothes, I stuff in the box, bring the box to the garage, go to the kitchen, stack all the plates, close the box, bring the box to the garage. I'm not making any decisions. I'm just stuffing things in the box because they're not mine. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to get involved in other people's drama because I know it's not quite mine, right? I can give advice, armchair quarterbacking, backseat driver, whatever you want to say. You know, I'm involved, but not totally involved. Sometimes that's easier than dealing with my own stuff. So triangling is helpful for families and churches, but the more that families and churches rely on triangulation as a way to stabilize the system instead of actually addressing the tension, the more likely these families and churches will become polarized. And it's harder for them to figure out the tension they experience. Is that my tension or other people's tension or the church's tension? Is it my family's tension? Is it my personal tension? Is it my siblings' tension? Whose is this? Because the hot potatoes don't always have names on them, or we don't care the look. But thinking about, man, how do I handle these hot potatoes that are passed down from generation to generation or moved around in my family can change the way we approach the tension that other people have. So these are some jugglers. The person on the left, we know this is a juggler because they have a red hat and striped pants. They have 1, 2, 3, 4 batons they're juggling. Well, one is on his hip, but I'm pretty confident he wouldn't bring it along unless he was going to also be throwing that in there. So one person juggling 4 batons. On the right-hand side, we have 1, 2, 3 people juggling batons. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 different batons that 3 people are juggling. So with more people, many hands make light work, right? The more people that are involved, the more hot potatoes we can handle, right? What happens just because we add people, we add hot potatoes, and if no one actually deals with the hot potatoes, we'll just have this growing mound of hot potatoes. And sometimes things are dangerous. Sometimes we're dependent on other people to take care of their hot potatoes so that there's not a big avalanche of extra hot potatoes that I've been trying to keep in the air. So sometimes we are in precarious positions trying to manage our anxiety. Because sometimes we're also managing other people's anxiety. And the more anxious and polarized that families and churches become, what this means is we get too mixed up in what's happening and our objectivity is lost. We get too caught up in what's going on and we can't actually see things objectively. It's hard to see the forest for the trees. Are they helpless, or do you just want to feel needed? Because sometimes we tell ourselves stories and narratives and justifications for why we need to jump in to help them. So we might say things like this: they need me. I was put on this earth for such a time as this. I know what I need to do. In fact, I'm an expert. They need my help. I've been down this road before. I have some wisdom I can share with them. I'm their pastor, I'm the supporter, I'm their friend, I'm their aunt, I'm their uncle, I'm their neighbor, I'm their mentor, whatever it is. I'm in a position to help them. I know what to do, and I'm in a position to help them. They are my responsibility. They're my family, my friend. It's my job, it's my role, it's my responsibility. I know what to do. I know how to tie shoes. I could jump in to tie my daughter's shoes. I know how to do it. In fact, I could tie my daughter's shoes way faster than she could. I could probably tie my shoe 30 times before she gets to tie her shoe once. So therefore, I'm better at it. Therefore, I need to do it. I'm a rescuer. I'm a helper. I'm a peacemaker. I know how to fix this. I've done this before. Or, I don't want to, but I can take one for the team. So we tell ourselves stories why we need to always help out every single time. And if it's not us telling ourselves stories, other people telling me stories. This is what it looks like. Good thing they called me. I'm a neutral party and a great listener. They told me that, and it feels good to be a good listener. Now, when you talk to the other person on your behalf, I'll need to hear their side of the story too. Blessed to be the middleman. What happens is we get caught up in their distress. And the more we get caught up in their distress, the more we experience the tension of that relationship. They might even tell us things like, you are such a good listener. You've always been supportive. Nobody understands us like you do. I can count on you. We need a mediator, and that mediator is you. Or even just, I'm worried about so-and-so. I need your advice. These are all ways that people are trying to triangle you into their tension. Now, like I said before, triangles are healthy because they stabilize relationships, right? They provide an important function. But if we're relying on triangles to try and stabilize our relationships instead of actually dealing with the anxiety and the tension in our relationships, then we're just spreading hot potatoes around. This is the top left. It's kind of hard to see some of the nuances here. But just from what you can see, does this look like soft snow or hard packed snow? Hard? Okay. And what's the difference if I touch snow that is soft and fluffy versus hard packed? What is the difference in my sensory experience of that snow? What did it say? Light, soft, fluffy, maybe pleasant to the touch. Okay? But hard packed boulders of ice, is that pleasant to the touch? Yeah. A little bit different. On the right-hand side, how is this vehicle going to get out of their driveway? Got to shovel the snow, yeah. But I don't know if a shovel is going to get rid of this big boulder. You might need a pickaxe, right? Or you might need just to put the car in reverse and gun it and see what happens, right? So the snow got here because the snowplow was moving snow, right? Moving snow off of the road. Shoveling snow off the road. Does the snowplow get rid of the snow? No, it just moves the snow, right? Move the snow so we can get to work. Move the snow so we can park somewhere. It's not actually dealing with the snow, right? On the left-hand side, notice how the snowplow has pushed the snow up to the garage, and it looks like there's one of those garages that swings out. So I don't even know if you can get into your garage to get a shovel to deal with this snow. How are you going to deal with it? On the right-hand side, this happened back in 2009 when I was at Andrews University getting my degree at the seminary, and this is at Benton Harbor, Michigan. And there was a person who did not enjoy their experience at this auto parts store. They were upset with the person who was helping them, upset with the manager. And this was in the news because 2 months later, he was called at 2 a.m. in the morning to put his plow in the front of his pickup truck to come and clear out a parking lot. and he arrives at the address, and he realizes this is the parking lot where I did not like how I was treated. So he pushes all the snow from the parking lot into the front of the door, so all the patrons who want to attend this store have to then climb over this big mound of snow. All right. In the story of Abraham, we'll be looking at Genesis quite a bit today. The story of Abraham, can you think of a potential triangle in that family? Of course? Okay, good. Let's get the first one.
Sarah and Hagar.
Good. And who's the third person?
Abraham.
Good. 3 people, that makes a triangle. Good. Give me another one. No other triangle we can think of? Oh, we got some hands over here. Here we go. Well, we all want to hear it.
Abraham, Sarah, and Lot.
Abraham, Sarah, and Lot. Excellent. Good. Another triangle. We got one right here in the green.
I would say eventually Ishmael.
So Ishmael, who else?
And what's his name? Jacob.
And Jacob?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, we got one over here.
Sarah, Abraham, and Abimelech.
Good. King Abimelech, good, of the Philistines. Great, good. So notice, any 3 people you mention will be a triangle because it takes 3 people. It's a 3-person emotional configuration. Good. Awesome. But we don't actually need to participate in these triangles in the way that we normally do. But when we allow ourselves to be roped in, to be triangled into their distress, we don't actually resolve any of that anxiety. Instead, we just push and spread the anxiety around like moving snow. And sometimes the biggest people move the most snow. And oftentimes the most snow, that anxiety gets hard packed in some families. And I'm guessing we all know some families that just have a little bit more anxiety than other families. You can sense it when we are walking on eggshells, when we're not allowed to talk about certain topics. We can't address certain things. We have to move around these big mounds of snow, and it changes the way that we operate because that anxiety gets stuck and packed in that system. The result is we perpetuate the practice of spreading anxiety to and from those that we love. And when we are caught thinking about other people's problems, we know we have caught their anxiety. So again, to the extent to which you become responsible for or try to change the relationship to others, the more you will experience the stress of that relationship. And there are some consequences for the family system or the church system. People become dependent on others to manage their own anxiety. Conflict is not managed directly. Nobody assumes responsibility because we're all just tossing hot potatoes around anyways. And anxiety becomes stuck and frozen, and this ultimately prevents growth and compromises our objectivity because we're getting muddy gloves. Okay, so this is the anxiety they want to share with me, and my anxiety I've been waiting to share with them because they have anxiety to unload off onto me. I also have anxiety to unload off to them. There's this transaction that takes place in relationships to help stabilize the system. Again, oftentimes triangles are healthy to provide some stabilization, but sometimes they are misused in a way that's not fair for the rest of the family system. All right, let's take a break for a second. Brian's been talking for a few minutes, and I want to see if y'all are able to understand some of these concepts. So get into small groups of like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 maximum, and try and answer these questions. Talk amongst your groups, answer these questions. What is a triangle? How do they work? Why are triangles not dyads, the basic building blocks of emotional systems? What are some of the reasons or narratives or justifications we tell ourselves why we need to jump in to help other people? And what happens to us and or the system if we continue to triangulate other people into our distress? So try and get in small groups, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, and try and answer these questions. Raise your hand if you want another minute. If you need another minute. Okay, feeling generous, you get another minute. All right. Let's tap into the wisdom of the group with our microphones. I want to hear a good example that you heard from your mouth or someone else's mouth nearby. What is a triangle? How do they work? Raise your hand. What is a triangle and how do they work? Well, maybe Brian did not do a good enough job explaining this. What is a triangle and how do they work?
So a triangle is I call it a shape,
Good.
but it has three sides, and as we had said before, that it provides some kind of support.
Good.
Support system.
Yes.
And
Great.
to the fact that it has three sides, each person can get support from it.
Good. Each person gets support from other people. Great. And this is this three-person emotional configuration. And this can provide a lot of support. But if we exclusively rely on triangles in of themselves, then some of the tension distress will never actually be resolved. I remember watching this documentary about some old basilica in Europe. Had arches like this beautiful church. And whoever had created this church, there's something called flying buttresses. There's supports on the outside of the church that provide basically a wider triangle for the weight of the church to be dispersed, but they did not put these triangle flying buttresses in the right spots. The church was starting to crumble, but they tried to figure out how can we just support the church as it is, put more supports on the outside of the church, and doing so, hold it up for just a little bit longer, instead of actually addressing the underlying challenge, the reason why the church was starting to crumble in the first place. There are some issues with the foundation, but instead of dealing with that, it was so much easier and more cost-effective to provide supports on the outside of the church instead of deal with the underlying challenge. So triangulation in of itself can provide stability, but it does not actually address and resolve the tension we experience. Good. Why are triangles not dyads, the basic building blocks of emotional systems?
Yeah, the reason why triangles not dyads because basically two people always need somebody to help them with what's going on.
Yes.
They don't always, whenever there's things going on, they might include a friend, a family member, whatever, so they can help to bridge what's going on between them.
Good, and depending on your family culture and your culture, there might be different social expectations about our involvement in other people's distress, right? But there is a price to pay. The more we get involved, the more we experience that distress. Likewise, there's a price to pay if you never help anybody, right? If you're not willing to provide any support. So how do we navigate these relationships is a big question we're dealing with today. Good. What are some reasons or narratives we tell ourselves why we need to jump in to help other people? Yes, hand back here.
I think that some of the reasons we are willing to participate in triangles is to create
peace and a sense of direction.
Yes.
And to create balance.
Yes. I'm so anxious around these people. If I can just provide some peace, then I can relax. I can provide some balance in this turmoil, and I'm needed to be the one to provide that stabilizing force, right? But there's a cost to do that, right? Especially if I have to jump in every time there's tension between two people. If they always call on me, if I'm on call for them, to jump in whenever they want me. Good, what are some other reasons or justifications we tell ourselves why we need to participate in triangles? There's a hand over here. Oh, wait, let's make it, everyone can hear that.
It is my responsibility.
Yes, it's my responsibility. And sometimes this is true. And sometimes they will tell you it's your responsibility when it may not be your responsibility. Yes?
I am better at it.
Ooh, I am better at it, right? I don't want them to fail like I did. I want to save them from that learning experience. I'm better at this. I'm faster at this. I'm quicker at this. Let me just do it for you. But again, if you repeat that pattern over and over and over, they'll become dependent on you to tie their shoes when maybe they are able to tie their own shoes. Again, different people have different support needs across the lifespan, so we need to be aware of that. But if someone is capable of tying their shoes, they just don't want to, there's an opportunity for developing mastery over something so they can learn how to do it as well. Good. What happens to us or the family system when we continue to participate in triangles, shoveling around snow? What happens?
Yes, you don't give the other person a chance to grow.
Yes. You don't give the other person a chance to grow. And when the child is able to grow, they develop mastery, and meeting certain milestones helps them along the way. But if the parent always robs the child of an opportunity to develop some of these skills, the only thing the child will know is the shape of the spoon in their mouth. Yes?
You take on that same stress, but you also might be avoiding dealing with your own growth.
Yes, yes. The more we get involved and become responsible for, feel responsible for other people's unresolved distress, the more we experience that distress. And sometimes we do that as a distraction so we don't have to deal with our own stuff. Yes?
I've experienced some of these things you're talking about, and for me, it boiled up in a bunch of anger and resentment.
A bunch of anger and resentment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that things can happen if we don't know what we're doing. We should know. We see everybody else tying their shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to tie my shoes.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe because people have not provided an opportunity for us to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it could have been I was stubborn, didn't want to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. And now we get to experience the consequences of that, right? Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. There might be days, I can see a potential situation where my daughter's not want to tie her shoes, and I say, okay. Then you can tuck your laces into your shoes if you want. Or try doing shoes without laces. If you are bent on doing that, we can do that. There's a possibility that might happen. Okay, good. Looking at the time, I want to make sure we can fit through a few other things. Okay, we're going to be talking about our role and our position in the triangle. There are 3 different roles we can take in a triangle. 1, we can be the anxiety generator. We bring anxiety as our +1. The second one, we can be an anxiety amplifier. We amplify the anxiety. The third option is to be an anxiety dampener. So we're a generator, an amplifier, or a dampener. And all of these options are not always represented in a triangle. Most of us are good at generating anxiety or amplifying anxiety. Not all of us are naturally good at dampening anxiety. But these are the 3 possible roles in the triangle. And sometimes we might switch between roles. The anxiety generator, they bring their anxiety as their +1. They bring their anxiety to the group. Hey, I need some help with this. This is an issue we need to take care of. I'm generating anxiety with the hope of other people responding to that anxiety because they've caught it. They've caught that anxiety and now they want to do something about it. You can also be an anxiety amplifier, someone who amplifies the anxiety to make a bigger deal out of it. Hey, this is an issue we need to pay attention to. Again, hoping that someone's going to take some action to deal with his anxiety. The third option is the anxiety dampener. Someone who does not catch the anxiety. Instead, they actually dampen the anxiety. And these are often subconscious processes. We don't even know that we are doing it, but they definitely affect the way we navigate our relationships. So the second option, anxiety dampener. You can actually dampen the anxiety by trying to minimize it. Imagine there's a 10-year-old boy who comes home and he's getting bullied at school. And he comes to his mom and says, "Mom, I'm getting bullied." And mom says, "It's not that big of a deal. Don't worry about it. You're 10 years old. You have 3 more months of school left. Just suck it up. It's not that big of a deal." But he's like, but Mom, they're making fun of like my shoes and what I'm eating and my shirts. Don't be such a baby. It's not that big of a deal. Just toughen up. So now this boy, who finally had the courage to bring it up to his mother, the mother saying, "It's not that big of a deal," even though it obviously is a big deal for the boy. So now the boy, because the mom tried to dismiss it as not a big deal, that has actually amplified his anxiety. Likewise, he goes to, let's say his father's at home. "Dad, I'm getting bullied." "What? Who is bullying you? What are their names? I'm going to take you to school tomorrow. I'm going to stand outside the school. You point out who the kids are. I'm going to talk to their parents. I'm going to call the principal. We're going to set up a conference with the principal and the teacher and all these families, and you will not be bullied. In fact, I'm going to stand there. I'm going to send a guard dog with you to make sure you don't get." All of a sudden, the father's like on the rampage to deal with the issue, but he's actually amplifying the anxiety, right? Luckily, Nana's at home. The boy finally goes to Nana. He didn't get what he needed from Mom and Dad. He goes, "Nana, I'm getting bullied." And Nana goes, "I'm so sorry. Come here. Let's talk about it." The boy starts to well up with tears, tells Nana about it. She goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm here. You're safe with me. Come here. Sit on my lap. I'm so sorry this is happening to you. You are always safe with me. You're always safe in this home. You're always safe with me, and I'm here for you." And her behavior, her response, her posture towards the boy's anxiety is dampening his anxiety. In other families, this might look different. Nana's response might be different. She might need to do other things. It depends on the family system, the rules of the family system. But whatever those behaviors are, they actually dampen the anxiety instead of amplify it. And that's usually a conscious process. It's hard to do that unconsciously. We're usually intending to do that. We're pretty good at generating, pretty good at amplifying, but we need to be more intentional about actually dampening other people's anxiety. Because when we experience some sort of stress, if it's met with other stress, it seems bigger. But if our distress is met with calmness, that issue seems a little bit more and more manageable. So we talked about triangles. We've talked about our roles, the generator, the amplifier, the dampener. The final thing I want to talk about is our position in the triangle. We'll go to this picture and here we go. M at the top is an outsider. There's tension between Q and P, the insiders. And these insiders have this unresolved distress, and they want to stabilize their relationship, so they want to pull in M to provide that stability. But M is on the outside. It's not M's issue, it's their issue. And the more M gets involved, the more he will experience the distress of that relationship. And sometimes potentially rob them of the opportunity to figure out how to resolve that conflict. So it's actually preferable to be on the outside because other people are always looking for a third party to join them. Everybody wants stabilization because they're trying to find a way to feel calmer. That's ultimately what we want. I want to be calmer. I don't want to have as much distress. And I think if I can offload some of these hot potatoes onto other people, I'll feel better. And then maybe I'm never actually dealing with the underlying tension. And it's actually better to be the odd person out. So you can make some intentional decisions about how much you want to get involved or not get involved, instead of automatically feel like you have to sacrifice your own emotional capacity, jump in to save them because you were put on the earth for such a time as this, you know how to do it. They're so thankful. And in doing so, you get roped into their anxiety and you've caught their anxiety and now you've got muddy gloves. But there are other ways we can navigate these relationships in thinking about whether or not I want to stay on the outside of their business. They will try and convince you that you need to get involved as if this hot potato is yours, but it may not be yours. They might write your name on it, but it may not be yours. You get to decide how much you want to get involved. So we're out of time. We have 2 more minutes, but go ahead and reflect on these questions. Try and figure out the difference between a generator, amplifier, dampener. Does a triangle always have these 3 roles represented? The answer is no. And it's preferable to be on the outside, so you get to decide whether or not you get involved. Okay, let's have prayer, and then we will transition. Father God, you are the right counselor, you are the teacher, you are our provider, you are our savior. You have all of the wisdom, and we are just trying to do the best we can in our relationships. I pray you give us the wisdom as well, and the courage, and the fortitude, and the strength to move forward in a healthy way. Be with us today, Jesus. Amen.